Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Arizona Monthly Housing Market Update. Got my words tied there for a moment. I'm Katie, and this is
Matt and
Ryan. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, team. Welcome back. It's June. Can you believe the year is like halfway done?
Yeah, look at the temperatures. I'm believing June's hitting this week. Yeah, it's I think we're over 100 here soon. Yes.
Yeah. And I heard a statistic yesterday. We are actually now closer to 2050 than we were to 2000.
Oh, that's scary.
Isn't that weird? You know me and my statistics. I love them.
That is actually really strange now that you say that. Wow.
Yeah. Just let that sink in here for a sec. Anyway, aside from time flying faster than we can catch it, guys, Ryan, let's start with mortgage rates. How are we doing over in your office?
Yeah, it's been an exciting few months in the market. There's been plenty of movement in really both directions. I listen to just about every top market expert around to get their predictions on mortgage rates. And for the first time in a long time, they're saying, we don't know. You know, and the reason for this is that, there's so much of the direction of the market and interest rates. It comes down to really the tariffs and the trade war. The Federal Reserve, they have been holding the funds rate steady, even though we are seeing signs of a slowing economy and even slowing job growth. And this is because they don't know how the tariffs will impact prices and inflation, or how long the trade wars will be going on. So, recently, the trade talks have stalled, but just this morning, President Trump spoke to Xi in China, and now there's more optimism that they might meet and cut a deal. So, bottom line, if President Trump can finalize some of these trade talks, it really will change everything. We'll start to see a rally in the stock market, and many feel that the Federal Reserve will be more comfortable dropping rates, knowing that the tariffs, are gone and won't impact inflation much more. So eventually, mortgage rates will follow suit in that case. So mortgage rates have really stalled and remain elevated as we're kind of in, wait and see mode with everything.
Mm-hmm. How is that affecting applications on your end? I mean, granted, I know we're getting into summer, so we tend to slow down naturally just a little bit. But aside from that, are you seeing any movement either direction?
Yeah, we're starting to kind of see the typical slowing in the summertime. So it's hard to say if that's just because, rates are still elevated. But I think nationally what we are seeing is, I think consumer confidence is still pretty low right now, just because the frustration with mortgage rates just not really dropping. So I know sellers are really kind of getting off the fence and listing their homes, but the buyers just aren't there as much is really what we're kind of seeing. So I know it kind of all hangs on where rates go. And if we do see kind of a significant drop, I know buying activity will pick up quite a bit, but we are seeing it slowing.
And inventory plays a little part in that. Matt, you saw some rather significant changes in inventory.
Yeah, which is, it was, I guess I was actually a little bit surprised just based on, what we were seeing from buyer activity and such. But I think we felt it kind of in our own little world as far as what we saw with activity on our current listings and even on the buying side. So, but my weekly tracker where I track inventory in Pinal and Maricopa County each week on where we're at with inventory. This last week was the first time in 62 weeks for us to do it was a 2.3% decrease in inventory.
Great.
We have not been that high in, once again, like 62 weeks. And for the last 5 weeks, we've remained flat. And actually we were like 0.2, 0.3% dropping in inventory in that time period. So, is it seasonal? Part of me says possibly, but I also feel like based on what we're seeing, there is some activity out there. Another interesting thing that I was reading earlier was, a big percentage of millennials, they're the one generation that's really kind of stepping up right now and saying, hey, let's look at the long-term picture here. This is a good time to buy. Yeah, rates might be high, but we have definitely got a good choice. And we've seen that, with our own buyers. So I think, they're making that move and they're at that right, age to make that wise decision. So hats off to them because I think it's going to be a very good decision when they look back on it.
Totally agree. Want to make a couple of points about what you just said, and I want to take a look at this slide right here. Slide Girl has not been around for a little while. Did you miss me?
Happy back.
This is a good one.
This is a great one, guys. So this is sales per month, and this is Maricopa and Pinal County across the board, all property types. So this is just kind of a broad bird's eye view, right? And I have to agree with you, Matt. I feel like it's a little bit sales and it's a little bit just coming into the summer in terms of the lower inventory, because you can see April was a great month for us when we look at spring, you know, when we compare Q1 and what we have of Q2, but May wasn't too bad. May is just kind of just under it in terms of sales. So I would agree with you. I'm seeing less requests from our clientele to get homes listed as the summer approaches as well. So I think that's just kind of a natural thing. Second, I'm seeing a lot of activity, and Ryan, you tell me if this is what you're seeing too, under the 400 mark.
Yes, that's where we're seeing it. I think more buyers right now are seeing that there's more opportunities out there for better deals, and you know, I think they're used to seeing home inventory in 2020 and 2021 being very low and just not many options out there. So we're seeing more inventory and more options, and sellers more willing to either, you know, give concessions or a little bit of a price drop, and that's motivating some more people to get off the fence, and we're hoping that continues.
Absolutely. And for a while, I wasn't seeing a ton of rate buy down requests on offers that were coming in. I'm seeing them again.
Yep. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of those right now, and buyers really taking advantage of the 2-1 buy down program, which is just very popular right now. I'm saying probably about 40% of the deals we have a temporary buy down on there, and it's just such a great tool in this market right now, where buyers are maybe able to get some more seller paid closing costs, as we're kind of a little bit more in a buyer's market and they have a little bit more power with their offers, but it does allow them to get rates, you know, 2% or 1% less over the first 2 years of the mortgage as we wait for rates to drop. It's just a great option for everybody.
And I think a lot of the consumers too are now like, there's enough light at the end of the tunnel that I do feel that there's confidence that we are going to see a rate adjustment in a minimum of 2 years.
Yes.
You know, where, you know, if you rewind a couple of years, you know, this was a real popular tool, especially coming out of the low rates of 2022, and we were kind of going into 2022, 23. And then it kind of paused because once again, we're going into election cycle and we're just saying, hey, where are we at? How long could this be? So then does it really pencil out to spend that extra money to buy it down for something you might inevitably not be able to refi out of? So I think this really plays well. The other thing that I thought was interesting based on what we were saying for inventory was, you know, traditionally the summer is, well, this period between like May 15th and July 4th is always, you know, a great time for sales in Arizona. And I would have thought, you know, a lot of people that, especially sellers that are saying, hey, maybe I need to sell, there a little bit of, you know, some of those personal reasons, we're really kind of targeting to drop their homes on the market during this time. And I was a little nervous, wondering how many people were planning on doing this and had to do this, and was there going to be the buyer demand there to match that? And you know what we've seen is the opposite of kind of what I was thinking, which is very positive, because it means a lot of sellers out there still are in a good spot, that they're not in a position where they feel like they're economically pinched, they have to sell their home to move out of the state or something, in the sense that they need to take a hit. No, they have the ability to be patient. And I think, you know, confidence in a stronger economy does allow that option. So, you know, I do think that's a good thing. And it's kind of just, I think, putting us in a good position for these people that do want to sell, that when rates do drop, we might see a little bit of a burst of new inventory, which would be perfectly timed because we're going to see an uptick in buyers. And I think it could just be a really healthy entrance into these rate drops, especially if it happens in our fall.
I totally agree. And I want to myth bust something based on what you just said in terms of sellers being in distress. So are y'all seeing all the clickbait happening
Oh,
out
God.
there? Is it
Oh,
the
yeah.
most ridiculous thing that you've ever seen? There's a few of them that I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? But one of them is back to my sales per month little chart here from the Cromford report. For those of you who are just listening podcast style, this is sales per month, and we're looking all the way back to Q1 of of 2023. So starting in 2023 Q1 all the way to as far as we can in Q2 of 2025. And in terms of distressed properties, there's really not a lot. So you can see on the key under transaction type here, red is REO or foreclosure, light blue is short sale, and the navy or dark blue is a normal sale. Now, the majority of all of these bars are normal sales. You can see a little slight sliver of short sale at the top of many of these, and an even slighter red sliver at the top of some of these. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that the majority, like the great majority of sales are not distressed. And I believe that backs up what you were saying there, Matt. And that's what I'm seeing out there as well. But the clickbait that I'm seeing, this is my Mythbuster, is yesterday I saw this realtor who very boldly claimed that the majority of sales are, short sales, distressed, and that's what she's seeing. So I was blown away. I was like super floored because I'm Miss Short Sale girl. Like if there's short sales out there, like, I'm probably going to have 5 or 7 or 100, you know what I mean? And I don't have any. So I had to pull the data, and this is what I saw. So just want to caution those of you out there, be careful who you're listening to, be careful what you're believing and how that's driving your sales. Please, please, please be data driven and always dig into the actual data of that particular topic that you're consuming right there. I think I told you guys, and maybe you saw it, I believe it was ABC News, honestly, like a big media channel that dropped this story maybe 10 days ago, 15 days ago, something like that, about how realtors are saying this market looks exactly like 2008. I'll give you a moment, let you laugh, and then go ahead and say your piece.
Yeah. That's it's just kind of gross. It's so misleading, and everyone wonders why the trust in media is so low right now, because they just like to manipulate us and our emotions. And does this really help anyone? Think about that. Creating that type of scare, does that help anyone besides
it hurts them? It stops sales.
Yeah, it just helps for clickbait because everyone's drawn to fear. And the other interesting thing is, now that we've been, which I feel we're definitely at the bottom, and I've really been putting focus with a few investors. So we've really been looking at, hey, how can we take an arbitrage approach to forecasting rents and looking at, hey, let's pick up some properties, some deals now, knowing that in the coming years we will be able to refi and really put these longer term holds into a great position. Yeah. And by doing so, we've been looking on the outskirts where there are definitely more short sales than you'd see. And we've been engaging these short sales and putting in offers. And the interesting thing is the banks are not budging at all.
Because they have data.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if there was this 2008, 2000 looming type thing, the first people, the first groups that would know this would be these institutions. And they would know right off the bat, hey, we need to get ahead of this. And we're not even seeing anything of the sort. Like, it's actually laughable, some of the prices that we're getting countered on in these short sales when they're above market value, and these homes need a lot of work and they're being sold as is. So if all of a sudden I started seeing like, oh, wow, we're seeing some shift in response, and we've got a dozen offers out. It's not like it's just 1 or 2. There's a lot. And none of them are making any type of movement to say that any of these banks are like, oh, God, there's something happening in the future that we need to lessen this inventory. So I think that says a lot.
Totally agree. Anything come to mind that you'd like to add about all that from your world, Ryan?
Yeah, having been through the 2008 market, all three of us, I don't want to age ourselves here a little bit, but we have been doing this for a little while. It couldn't be further from the truth how different the markets are. I feel like, if anything, we're just a little bit more like the 2019 market, where we're kind of back to just a normal, balanced market that we had before COVID, before, rates were in the 2s and 3s, and we saw this mad dash to buy homes. I think the only thing that's a little bit different is that people are sitting on a lot more equity right now. So they do have time to kind of sit on their homes and not have to sell right away. And kind of like Matt was saying, they're not financially strapped, and they're kind of in wait and see mode too in some cases. So yeah, completely different. And 2008, what made that so unique was all the stated loans, the subprime loans that were out there, where you could basically get a home with 0 down, with a 580 credit score, without even improving your income. That was the reason that we had so many foreclosures in 2008 and 2009. And those programs all went away, and you basically have to prove all of your income now and all of your assets, and have a little bit of a down payment to get a house over the past, since 2008. So everybody who's in their homes really had to qualify for their homes. So it's a much different market.
You mean you have to tell the truth, right?
You do. You actually have to prove you could pay the mortgage back now.
Dang, things have changed.
Yeah.
I remember those days all too well. People were buying like 4, 5, 6 houses. Remember that? And they were sitting vacant. They weren't even like the rent. They weren't even getting rented. It was insane.
Oh, I know. Yeah. If a movie recommendation, I think we've talked about it, was A Big Short, which kind of explains everything in detail. And yeah, I think they even show a few people that were buying 5 and 6 homes who obviously couldn't afford it. And that a lot of that was going on. It was. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's a great movie, obviously, to watch if people haven't watched it. And it also just gives you a glimpse to how deep this goes. Yeah. Even when they really start talking about how these credit rating, institutions play a role in markets, and how the markets are going to respond to their ratings. And, and we just kind of came off the backs of that whole Moody credit agency, dropping our so-called credit rating when there's 2 others that we've already been dropped on. And it's just, you can kind of see the political nature, and you scratch your head saying, what, how much weight should we really put into these, and what purpose do they really serve? And, a lot of what I read is like, they're kind of really not serving that purpose anymore. They're kind of quick-lived. And now with AI and a lot of everything that they can do to monitor what's happening a lot quicker, these guys are kind of old news. We don't really need them as much.
Yeah, totally true. And one point that I just want to stick on just real quick, I definitely don't want people to not see the facts and see the data. We have declined a little bit price per square foot across the board. I mean, we certainly have. I've just pulled up a chart. If you're only listening, this is a 3-month moving average sales price per square foot, all the way back to, January of 2021. So it's really an interesting chart. If you have a moment, flip over to YouTube and check it out so that you can see. But it is showing, and again, this is across the board. This is all property types. This is all of Maricopa and Pinal County. Okay. So Matt's going to kick me under the table if I don't give the disclaimer that your specific area has its own data set. Okay. So when you're looking to list your property, you're not going to price based on this average price per square foot, but it does show us what the market is doing as a whole. And yes, we have declined a little bit in price per square foot. So I don't want anyone to get, us wrong out there. There has been a little bit of a dip, a change, if you will. But it's nothing like what I'm seeing out there from ABC News.
Yeah, I think they're looking at other areas too, the ones that were previously extremely hot spots, like Austin, Texas, Tampa and Florida, which saw huge jumps, over the past few years, and just seeing a little bit of a correction now. And that's really what these kind of things are, just like a slight correction, but the media kind of takes that little small bit and explodes it, and everybody gets that fear, so got to be careful on those things.
Because we can spin numbers and make it sound terrible, right? Like, for instance, if you have 0 foreclosures and then you get 1, well, what's that percentage? And if you know what I'm saying? And you can be like, hey, we're up 100%.
Well, no, and absolutely. And like, good news, if we were to give great news on the news, people go out and live life happy based on that good news. If you give bad news on the news, they stay home and they watch for more bad news because they're scared and they want to know what's going on. So it's kind of like inject here and people are, I need more news. So, it's definitely something to be aware of. But on the other side too, we still look at what's going on with luxury. Luxury is still rocking right now. There's still record sales happening in the state, over $15 million homes being sold. And that usually is not happening right now. Most people that are purchasing these style homes are usually floating on a yacht or in the south of France because it's summer.
Exactly.
But no, we're still seeing that movement. So if we see that, once again, the confidence in that level of purchases, that just says a lot. That says so much about what's really happening here in Arizona and what's to come in the future.
Yeah, I just reviewed luxury stats for May, and May was another gangbuster month for luxury. And the average price was over 5 million.
Yeah. So that says so much right there, that these, I mean, they're the ones that are basing their moves off, what's happening with all markets and, in their businesses and such. So I think that's a real good barometer for the true confidence in the state of our economy. So if you are feeling negative and such, just make sure you're looking for not just the one source of news. Be critical, get out there, do your own research, ask your local professionals, and get a good feel. I think that's the best thing you can do for yourself and your sanity.
And I think you should ask to see the data.
Yeah.
Like, you can get a verbal response all day long from XYZ professional, but hey, bro, back it up with some data. I want to see the sales data. Come on.
Yeah. Show me the chart. Katie's
Right.
got it.
Yeah, break it out. Come on, man. Slides here.
I love my charts. All right, guys. Anything else to add before we say sayonara for June?
No. I think I think we're good. I would say, once again, just keep looking. If you're thinking of purchasing and you got to purchase in the next 6 months before the end of the year, I would really be looking. Rates might be high, but the summer is always a great time to purchase in Arizona because you do have a little bit less competition. You can usually get a better deal. And there's just a really good part of me that feels like the end of 2025 is going to be a good final quarter. And I think that's for political purposes. You could have a very terrible January through September. It could be very, very bad. But if you have a wonderful October through December 31st, how does everyone remember 2025?
Exactly.
As amazing. So I think that's what everything's kind of being pushed to be.
Awesome, team. Well, thank you again so much for your expertise and your time. Guys, if you want to check out any of our previous episodes, we have a lot. Hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at Team Evo AZ. That's our handle. If you prefer the podcast style, you like it in your ears instead. You can't see my slides if you do that, but that's all right. Hop on over to your favorite podcast platform. Do a quick search for Arizona Real Estate Radio. There you'll find us. Like, download, subscribe, notify, all the things, and you will never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.